Virgin girl forced to have a romantic night with a millionaire who had never loved before. Until Ariel Carter didn't realize desperation had a sound until she heard it in her own voice. "I'll take the job," she whispered into the phone, clutching the worn strap of her backpack as she stepped out of the hospital's emergency exit. The stale air of downtown Atlanta wrapped around her like a fog, thick, dirty, impossible to breathe through. On the other end of the line, her cousin Tasha let out a smirk-laced breath. "I told you it was easy money, girl. One night you serve drinks, you smile, you go home with a fat envelope." Ariel hesitated. "Nothing sketchy, right?" "Stop acting like you're too good for it. You need the money. Zion needs the medication. Y'all ain't got choices." That part was true. Inside that hospital, her 10-year-old brother Zion was recovering from yet another seizure. His body too fragile for their world. His smile still too bright to belong in it. Ariel had taken care of him since their parents died 4 years ago. 19 then, now barely 20, she juggled nursing school, 2 jobs, and sleepless nights. Love was a fantasy, peace was a myth, dignity negotiable. So she said yes. The boutique was nestled in a tucked-away corner of Buckhead, guarded by a glass door, and a woman who eyed Ariel's thrift store jeans like she might smear the silk inside. Still, she was led to a dressing room where gowns hung like clouds, silver, gold, crimson. The stylist picked one without speaking, deep emerald green, thigh-high slit, low back. "I'm just serving drinks?" Ariel asked again. "Don't talk, just smile," the woman said as she zipped up the dress. By 9 p.m., she stood outside a 5-star hotel ballroom, in heels she couldn't walk in, makeup she barely recognized herself under, and a borrowed elegance that didn't belong to her skin. Inside, the gala glittered. Champagne flowed. Diamonds danced beneath chandeliers. Wealth and power pulsed through the room like music. Ariel clutched her tray of flutes, keeping her eyes down. But across the floor, eyes found her. His Malik Kingston. He stood with one hand in his pocket, the other loosely holding a tumbler of dark bourbon, detached from the crowd, as if none of it mattered. 32. Black, beautiful, and infamous. The tech mogul whose dating history was colder than his voice in interviews. Rumored to have built his empire on blood and betrayal. The man who'd been burned by love once and never went back for the ashes. And now he was staring at her like she was a puzzle piece in the wrong box. Ariel blinked, looked away, kept moving, but 30 minutes later, a hand grabbed her arm softly, one of the handlers. "You're wanted in the penthouse suite. Now." She froze. "What?" The woman's tone shifted. "You were requested. Don't ask questions." "But I'm just—" "Do your job." The suite was silent when she stepped in. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city skyline. A bottle of unopened champagne stood on ice beside a velvet love seat. Too romantic for business, too private for serving drinks. Ariel backed toward the door. It opened behind her, and in walked the storm. Malik Kingston in a black-on-black tuxedo. Loosened tie. No expression, no warmth. Just controlled, quiet force. His eyes slid down her frame. "You're the girl?" "I think there's been a mistake." "You agreed to this," he cut in, walking past her like a shadow. "One night, no games." Her throat tightened. "I didn't. This isn't what I signed up for." He turned, slowly. "Then walk out." She hesitated. He nodded at the door. "Go on, you'll walk out with nothing. Your cousin will keep her cut, and your brother will wait for that medicine until it's too late." She stared. He stepped closer. "But if you stay," he said, voice low, "we pretend. One night, no touching. You smile for the cameras. You act like you belong on my arm, and I sign the check that saves his life." Ariel's heart thundered. Why me? Malik paused. Something flickered in his gaze. You're the only woman here who doesn't want me. Later, in a gown worth more than her rent, Ariel walked into the ballroom on Malik Kingston's arm. She smiled like her world wasn't unraveling. He looked at her like she was his possession. They posed for photos, glasses clinked, eyes followed. In public, they looked perfect. In private, she whispered through clenched teeth. This isn't real. No, he said, glancing down at her lips. But it's convincing, isn't it? In the elevator back to the suite, just before the doors closed, Malik leaned in and kissed her. Not because he had to, but because for one split second, he forgot it was supposed to be fake. Ariel's heart slammed against her chest as the elevator doors sealed shut behind them. She hadn't expected the kiss. Not like that, not so soft, not so sudden, not from the man who looked at people like contracts and liabilities. She pulled back, breath caught in her throat. What was that? Malik didn't flinch, didn't even blink. Part of the performance. He turned his back to her, adjusting his cufflinks like he hadn't just turned her entire nervous system inside out. Reporters were watching from across the lobby. Ariel wiped her lips with the back of her hand, stunned at her own trembling fingers. You didn't have to kiss me. I don't do half measures, he said flatly. They rode the rest of the way in silence, the kind that settled like fog between them. Inside the penthouse again, Ariel stood awkwardly near the glass window, unsure whether she was supposed to leave, speak, or vanish into smoke. Malik poured himself a drink and didn't offer her one. His shoulders were tense, his jaw locked. He looked like a man who lived inside a fortress, and tonight's charade had left a crack. You can relax, he said finally. The night's over. Ariel took a step back. Good, then I'll go. He arched a brow. Without your payment? I'm not here for money. Malik turned slowly. You were, until you weren't. She folded her arms. You don't know anything about me. He walked closer. I know your cousin sold you. I know you didn't come here to play games. I know you've got someone depending on you, and that you'd rather starve than ask for help. Ariel's breath caught. Did you dig into me? I don't let strangers into my world without knowing exactly what they want. She looked down at her trembling hands. You're unbelievable. And yet you're still here. Her eyes burned. Only because you threatened my brother's future. No, Malik said quietly. Because you're the only one who didn't ask what I could give you. That's rare. There was a long pause. The city lights glittered beneath them. He could have asked her to stay. He could have crossed that line. Instead, he stepped back. There's a guest room down the hall, he said. You can stay the night, just for safety. The media already has your face. I'm not sleeping with you. He gave a cold smile. If I wanted to touch you, I would have done it by now. The room was stunning, too soft, too clean. It smelled like jasmine and cashmere and something unfamiliar. Safety, maybe, or the illusion of it. Ariel stood alone, wrapped in one of Malik's monogrammed robes, staring at her reflection in the marble bathroom. The girl in the mirror looked nothing like her, and yet the ache in her chest was all too familiar. She hadn't given her body, but something had still been taken tonight. Something about the way Malik looked at her, like he was searching for answers he didn't know he needed, had left her rattled. Meanwhile, 2 doors down, Malik stood in front of the fireplace, drink untouched, staring into the flames. He had kissed her. He, Malik Kingston, untouchable, uninterested, emotionally bulletproof, had kissed a girl he had no intention of keeping, and for the first time in years, he didn't want to let go. The sun filtered into the suite in golden streaks. Ariel woke up fully clothed, curled into the impossibly soft bed. For a few seconds, she forgot where she was. Then the door creaked open. Malik stepped in, no tie, shirt unbuttoned at the collar, holding a white envelope. "Your payment." She sat up slowly. "I told you." "I don't give charity," he interrupted. "I pay my debts." She took the envelope in silence, didn't open it. "Leave it on the table when you walk out if it offends you," he added. Ariel rose, robe tight around her. "This was never about money for me." He stared at her. "I know." She walked past him. He didn't stop her. Cut 2, hours later, nursing school, campus. Ariel tried to blend in, hoodie, glasses, head down, but it was too late. Her face was online. Blogs, gossip sites, and Instagram stories were flooded with headlines. Malik Kingston, seen with new mystery girl at gala, escort or girlfriend. Is this the one who finally melted his ice heart? She yanked her phone away from a classmate scrolling through the photos. That's not me. But it was, and now the whole world knew it. As she reached the hospital that afternoon, a black SUV was waiting outside. The back window rolled down slowly. Malik Kingston looked out at her, sunglasses low on his nose. "I need to talk to you." Ariel froze. "About what?" He paused, then said the words that would change everything. "How do you feel about a 3-month contract?" Ariel stood frozen on the hospital steps, clutching her bag like a shield. She hadn't expected to see him again. Not this soon. Not like this. Malik Kingston sat in the back seat of the black SUV, eyes hidden behind dark lenses, voice calm like a storm before it broke. "I need to talk to you." Ariel didn't move. "Why?" He leaned forward slightly. "Get in." "I'm not some toy you summon when you're bored." His lips curved into the faintest smirk. "If I thought you were a toy, I'd have played with you already." That made her flinch. A passing nurse gave her a strange look. She didn't have time to explain or defend herself. The photos, the dress, the suite, she was already someone else in everyone's eyes. She opened the door and slipped inside, jaw tight. They didn't speak as the driver pulled away from the curb. The windows blocked out the noise of the city, but not the sound of her heartbeat. "I want to offer you a deal," Malik finally said. 3 months. You stay close. We pretend. I handle the media, and you get exactly what you need. Ariel turned her head sharply. "You think I want to pretend to be your girlfriend?" "No," he said. "I think you need money and protection, both of which I have." Her fists clenched in her lap. "You don't get to use my brother as leverage again." "I'm not. I'm offering you a solution. You won't have to explain anything to anyone if they think you're with me by choice. No more rumors. No more questions." She stared out the window. "What's in it for you? I need someone believable at my side. My stockholders are watching, my rivals are circling, and I need the press to stop chasing ghosts." "And I'm your solution?" "You're honest, unimpressed, real," he paused. "Exactly what I need to seem human again." Her chest tightened. "I'm not for sale." Malik tilted his head. "Then why haven't you left this car?" The silence between them grew heavy. She hated how right he was. The SUV stopped outside a sleek, glass-walled law office. He handed her a thick folder. "Read the contract. 3 months. No intimacy. No obligations outside appearances. Full medical coverage for your brother. A clean payout." She flipped through it. Her hands shook as she read. "I need time." "You have until tomorrow. After that, the offer disappears." She climbed out and walked away without a word. That night, she lay awake on a torn mattress beside her brother's hospital bed, watching the machines beep in rhythm. The invoice for his upcoming surgery glared at her from the edge of the table. The contract glared louder. The next morning, she walked into Malik Kingston's office. in jeans and an old sweater, hair pulled back, eyes hollow. She placed the signed papers on his glass desk. "I'll do it." He didn't smile, just stood, walked over, and handed her a black keycard. "Move into the penthouse tonight. Your first public appearance is tomorrow." "I have school." "We'll work around it." "I don't wear designer gowns. I don't eat caviar. I'm not some doll you dress up." "I don't want a doll," he said quietly. "I want you exactly how you are." She blinked, confused. "But if you step into my world, Ariel, you follow my rules." He turned away, ending the conversation without waiting for her reply. Later that evening, when she stepped into the penthouse with one duffel bag and 1,000 doubts, the first thing she saw was the skyline. It stretched endlessly across the glass, the city glowing beneath her like a dream too expensive to touch. The second thing she saw was Malik, standing in the kitchen in a black shirt, sleeves rolled, pouring a drink. He didn't greet her, didn't offer help with her bag, just nodded once. "Your room is down the hall, 3rd door." She wanted to fight, to scream, to say she wasn't some charity case dressed up for a billionaire's convenience, but instead she just nodded back. "Fine." She walked past him, her bag slung over her shoulder, her chin high. Behind her, Malik turned slightly, watching her disappear into the hallway. She didn't see the way his expression softened, didn't hear the way he whispered her name. Ariel. Didn't know that, in all the years of living in that sky-high tower, this was the first night he wouldn't be sleeping alone, and the first night he didn't want to. Ariel hadn't spoken a word to Malik in 2 days. Not out of fear, out of survival. Every moment inside the penthouse felt like walking across silk laced with tripwires. The floors were polished marble, the furniture sharp and angular, the air-conditioned silence thick enough to suffocate. There was no warmth in the space, no color beyond steel and ice. Just like him, Malik Kingston moved like a shadow through his own home. Quiet, purposeful, emotionally unavailable. He didn't yell, he didn't smile, he just existed, perfectly groomed and emotionally sealed, like a statue in a billionaire's museum. And now, Ariel was the exhibit no one invited. On the morning of their first public appearance as a couple, she found a box outside her bedroom door. Inside, a silk champagne-colored dress, delicate heels, and a folded note that read, "Be ready by 7. Ariel snorted and tossed the note aside. She didn't need instructions from a man who still hadn't asked how she liked her coffee. Still, she wore the dress. At precisely 7 p.m., Malik stood by the elevator in a black tuxedo, looking like wealth-made flesh. His eyes scanned her from head to toe. No leering, no compliments. Just a single nod. "You clean up well." She crossed her arms. "Thanks, you look like a villain at a charity auction." He raised an eyebrow. "That's because I am." They rode down in silence, except for the sound of her heart thudding in her ears. The event was a rooftop fundraiser for a children's education non-profit. Ironic, considering neither of them had anything resembling a normal childhood. The crowd buzzed with polite laughter and disguised judgment. Glasses clinked. Paparazzi snapped photos like machine guns. Malik didn't let go of her hand once. He introduced her as a close friend. She smiled through it, teeth clenched. He whispered backhanded compliments into her ear, just loud enough for others to hear. "You're doing well." "I'm not a show pony." "You're my partner now. Learn to play the part." She bit her tongue, hard. Later, back at the penthouse, she kicked off the heels and stormed into the kitchen where he was removing his jacket. "Don't ever talk to me like I'm furniture." He turned slowly. "Excuse me?" "You paraded me around like a trophy, like I didn't have a mind or a name." He poured himself a drink. "It was an act. That's what you signed up for." "Number chi." Signed up to protect my brother, not to be disrespected in public while I smile through it. He placed the glass down hard. And I signed up for a woman who knew how to follow rules. She stepped closer, fire in her voice. And I thought I was walking into a deal, not a cage. For a second, his jaw tensed. Then, to her surprise, he stepped back. "You're right." The words hit harder than a slap. She blinked. "Wait, what?" "You're not here to be controlled. I forgot that." He paused. "I'm not used to being challenged in my own home." "Maybe you should be." He gave her a look that made the air between them thrum. Later that night, she found him sitting alone in the darkened library, glass untouched, eyes fixed on nothing. "You okay?" she asked from the doorway. He didn't look at her. "Do you ever wish you could erase people?" "Yes," she said softly, "but the memory always grows back." Silence stretched. Then he finally spoke. "My father walked out when I was 8. My mother died when I was 10. I built my company from scratch by 21. I've been burned by every person I ever let close." She stepped in, sat across from him. "I've never even been kissed by someone who didn't want something." Ariel's heart cracked, just a little. She didn't say anything, didn't offer pity or promises. She just sat beside him until the silence became safe. The next morning, he was gone before she woke. A note was left on the kitchen counter. "Breakfast is yours. Coffee's in the black cabinet. M." She laughed under her breath and poured herself a cup. That night, just as she was getting comfortable, she opened the door to her room and found him standing there, shirt unbuttoned, eyes unreadable. "I had a nightmare," Malik said quietly. "I'm not a therapist." "I know." He hesitated. "Just don't close the door. Not yet." She didn't, and for the first time, Malik Kingston didn't sleep alone. Malik didn't touch her. He hadn't even stepped across the threshold. He just stood there in the dim hallway outside her bedroom, shirt wrinkled, hair tousled, eyes heavy with something that wasn't lust or power, but exhaustion. Real, human exhaustion. So Ariel left the door open. She lay in her bed facing the wall, heart racing while his slow footsteps faded into the guest suite across from hers. A door closed gently, and then nothing. The silence of his vulnerability lingered in the air long after she fell asleep. The next morning, she found him already gone. No note, no coffee instructions, just a perfectly arranged breakfast tray left by the housekeeper and the quiet hum of a home too wealthy to feel alive. She sat at the marble island picking at fresh strawberries and croissants, wondering if the whole night had been a dream. Until her phone buzzed. "M. Driver will take you to the hospital. Tell Zion I said hi." She stared at the text. No one ever remembered her brother. Not even the people who claimed to care. Malik Kingston remembered. At the hospital, Zion grinned the moment he saw her, launching into updates about physical therapy and his nurse's obsession with action movies. "Did you get the job with the rich lady?" he asked between bites of his breakfast. Ariel paused. "Kind of." "Is it weird?" She smiled. "So weird." He leaned in, whispering like a secret agent. "But are they paying good?" "Enough," she said. "You're getting your surgery, Z. That's what matters." She didn't tell him about the contract, about the cameras, about the kiss, about the billionaire who looked at her like she was the one thing he didn't know how to price. On her way out, she passed a nurse scrolling on her phone. The screen showed a gossip headline. "Malik Kingston's mystery girl, virgin saint or social climber." Her stomach turned. She turned away. That night, when she returned to the penthouse, she didn't speak to Malik, just marched straight to the kitchen, ripped off her heels, and started cooking. He appeared a few minutes later, leaning in the doorway with his sleeves rolled and his phone forgotten. You're cooking. Congratulations, your eyesight works. I have chefs for this. And I have student loans and trauma. We all have our burdens. He watched her move around the kitchen, barefoot, annoyed, fearless. She chopped onions like they were stress relief and stirred sauce like it owed her money. He didn't say a word until she placed a plate in front of him. You're not special, she said. You're just hungry like everybody else. Malik took a bite, paused, looked up. This is good. I know. They ate in silence. A strange, unexpected peace settled over the room. Later, when she walked past the home office, she saw him at his desk, tie discarded, fingers tangled in his hair. She hovered in the doorway. Rough day? Board meeting. Someone tried to push me out of my own company. You gonna let them? He looked up at her. Ariel crossed her arms. If I can survive 5 years of bedwetting with a colicky baby brother and still pass anatomy exams, you can survive a couple of rich snakes in suits. He blinked. Then, just barely, he smiled. It was crooked, untrained, real. She'd never seen him look like that before. I think you're my good luck charm, he said. Great, add that to my resume. Professional distraction. He laughed, quiet, surprised at himself. Then, just as she turned to leave, a crash echoed from the office. She spun back, heart jumping. Malik stood over his shattered whiskey glass, blood dripping from his palm. Don't move, she said, rushing toward him. It's fine. It's bleeding, she snapped. Sit. She dragged him to the couch, snatched a towel from the kitchen, and crouched beside him. He watched as she cleaned the cut, gentle, focused, unafraid. You do this often? He asked. First aid is second nature when you grow up poor. Her fingers grazed his skin. He didn't flinch. You're the only person who talks to me like I'm not made of money, he said. She glanced up. That's because money isn't what makes you hard to deal with. Oh? You're cold. You isolate. You act like the world owes you something and like you hate it for paying you in full. He stared at her. She tied the cloth around his hand. But you're also not cruel. You could have kicked me out. You didn't. You think that makes me noble? I think it makes you confusing. He reached out and tucked a stray curl behind her ear. She froze. So did he. They were too close, too unguarded. She pulled back slowly. I should sleep. He nodded, hand still burning. She stood, walked to the hall, stopped, turned. Thank you for thinking of Zion. He didn't answer, didn't need to. His eyes said everything. The next morning, Ariel woke to the scent of something sweet. She padded into the kitchen and stopped cold. Malik was flipping pancakes, shirtless, hair messy, burn mark on one finger. What are you doing? She asked. He turned, deadpan. Trying to poison us both. She blinked. You cook? I YouTubed it. You're YouTubing pancakes. They didn't turn out great. She looked at the mess. No kidding. He shrugged. I wanted to do something. For you and Zion. Her heart did something it had no business doing. That's sweet. Don't tell anyone, he said, mock serious. She smirked. I won't ruin your villain brand. They sat down to his terrible pancakes, ate them anyway, and laughed. Not because the food was good, but because, for once, it didn't matter. Because something had shifted between them. Because the man who'd bought her silence was now trying, clumsily, to earn her smile. That night, as Malik walked her to her bedroom, she paused at the door and turned. He leaned down, inches away. She didn't pull back, neither did he. Their lips were close, too close, and the world went quiet. But then, his phone rang. He checked the screen, and his face went dark. Carmen. Ariel blinked. Who's Carmen? His jaw clenched. My ex-fiancée. Ariel took a step back. She didn't mean to, but her body moved before her brain caught up. The name, Carmen, landed in the hallway like a slap. Malik silenced the phone. Didn't answer, didn't explain. Just stood there, jaw hard, eyes unreadable. "So," Ariel said slowly, crossing her arms, "your ex is still calling you." "That's comforting." He didn't blink. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" "Complicated." She tilted her head. "You know what's complicated? Pretending to be the girlfriend of a man who keeps his past like a secret weapon." He exhaled through his nose and looked away. "I'm not asking for your confessions, Malik," she said, her voice lower now. "But if you want me to keep playing this part, I need to know what I'm walking into." He studied her, eyes searching hers. "I was engaged to Carmen," he said finally. 3 years ago. She left me, right before my company went public, then tried to come back once the stock price hit $1 billion. Ariel blinked. "So, she used you." He nodded once. "She taught me not to trust anyone." "Well," she said, backing toward her door, "lesson learned. Good night." She shut her door softly. Not angry, not jealous, just tired. She hadn't signed up for emotional puzzles. She hadn't signed up to care. But she did, and that terrified her. The next day, the tension was a wall between them. They passed each other like strangers in a house too big for two. At breakfast, Malik didn't speak. At dinner, he left early. By the following afternoon, she needed to breathe. She grabbed her keys and escaped into the city, hoodie pulled over her head and headphones in, even though nothing was playing. Sometimes she just needed to hear her own footsteps, not her own thoughts. She ended up at a park near her old community college. Kids screamed on the swings, a woman chased a runaway balloon, and the world, at least for a moment, felt normal. Ariel sat on a bench, pulled out a sketch pad she hadn't touched in months, and began drawing the fountain across the path. 10 minutes later, she sensed someone behind her. "I thought I was the only one who ran away from luxury to breathe in strangers' body spray." She looked up, Malik, in jeans and a black hoodie, no driver, no entourage, just him. She narrowed her eyes. "You followed me?" "I checked your GPS when you didn't answer your phone." "You tracked me?" "You're under contract. I protect my investments." Her pen paused. "Wow. You really know how to make a girl feel special." He sat beside her, watching the children across the grass. "You left without security." "I've been taking care of myself a long time." "I noticed." They sat in silence. Then he pointed at the sketch pad. "You draw?" "Not professionally." "You're good." She looked at him. "Why are you here, Malik?" He didn't answer right away. Finally he said, "Because when you're not in that penthouse, it doesn't feel like home anymore." Her heart skipped. "I don't like how quiet it gets," he added, "and I don't like wondering if you'll come back." She swallowed hard. "You're the one who pulled away." "I'm not good at this," he said. "I don't know how to be close to someone who doesn't need anything from me." She looked down at her sketch. "I don't want anything from you." "That's what scares me." Later that night, Ariel found Malik in the indoor gym, punching a sandbag like it owed him answers. She leaned against the doorframe, arms folded. "You fight ghosts a lot?" He stopped, chest heaving. "You want to try?" She smirked. "I grew up on the south side. I know how to throw a punch." He tossed her the gloves. Minutes later, she was laughing too hard to aim straight. Malik coached her through the form, his hands gently guiding her wrists. He stood behind her, hands lingering just a little too long on her waist. "Better," he said. "You just like touching me." He didn't deny it. Their eyes locked. Ariel's breath caught. Malik stepped back, and she felt the loss like wind through a broken window. The next morning brought chaos. A headline hit the news. Malik Kingston's new flame linked to nursing school, cheating scandal. Ariel's heart stopped. She stared at her phone, numb. Photos from 2 years ago, when she was falsely accused of academic dishonesty before being cleared, were being spun into a tabloid hit piece. The media was digging, and they were finding enough dirt to twist. She barely got her coat on before Malik stormed into the penthouse. "Who leaked this?" she asked. "Dante Wells." "Who?" "My biggest competitor, and a bastard with too much money and no moral code." Ariel clenched her fists. "This could ruin me." "I'll handle it." "No." She stood taller. "This is my fight. You can't just throw money at this and expect it to disappear. I can protect you, and I don't want to hide behind you." He stared at her. "I'm not afraid," she said. "I've faced worse." His voice dropped. "I know, and that's what makes me afraid." She blinked. "Why?" "Because I've never met anyone who could destroy me just by walking away." The words cut deeper than any insult, because she felt it too, and hated that she did. That night, she called her former professor, wrote a public letter, and stood her ground while Malik made sure the tabloids were issued legal warnings. The scandal faded by morning, but the fear stayed, because this was no longer a game, and feelings, real ones, were starting to bloom where only contracts had existed. The next evening, Malik knocked on her door. She opened it slowly. He held a soft blue box. Inside, a sketchbook, leather-bound, her initials engraved. "For your art," he said. She stared at it. "I saw your drawings," he added. "You should have something of your own in the penthouse, something real." She touched the cover gently. "I don't want you to think you can buy me." "I don't," he said. "This isn't about buying." "Then what is it about?" He met her eyes. "Trying." She exhaled shakily, then stepped forward and kissed him. It wasn't dramatic, or wild, or planned. It was soft, scared, real. His hands didn't move. He let her lead, and when she pulled away, his voice was low. "I told myself I'd never love again." She stared at him. "And now?" "I don't know what this is, Ariel, but it's more than I planned for." She swallowed. "Me too." As they stood in that quiet space, together, finally, Malik's phone buzzed again. He checked it, and his face darkened. "She's here." Ariel frowned. "Who?" "Carmen." Ariel didn't have time to prepare before the elevator chimed. She barely registered Malik's clenched jaw, or the way his body stiffened. Whatever softness he'd shown her minutes ago vanished, replaced by the icy silence of a man slipping back into armor. The doors opened, and Carmen Holloway walked in like she owned the air they were breathing. She was stunning. Of course she was. Tall, radiant, and perfectly put together in an expensive nude pantsuit and stiletto heels, with hair that looked professionally blown out and a designer bag draped casually on her wrist. She didn't even look at Ariel at first, only Malik. "You're still as handsome as hell," she said, her voice soft and calculated. "But thinner. Is she not feeding you?" That's when her eyes flicked toward Ariel. The smile didn't reach her eyes. "Oh," she added lightly, "I didn't realize you'd replaced me with a girl who looks like she just finished babysitting." Ariel didn't flinch. Malik stepped forward. "Say what you came to say." Carmen looked around the penthouse like she was inspecting a stage she once performed on. "I came to apologize, to you, for what happened between us." Ariel tried to step away, to leave the room, but Malik's hand caught her wrist, gently. He didn't look at her, but he didn't let go. "You didn't come to apologize," Malik said flatly. "You came to cause problems." Carmen gave a coy shrug. "Can't I do both?" "Say what you need to say and go." Ariel watched quietly, feeling like a ghost in her own story. She'd walked into this man's life through desperation and now stood between him and the woman who once promised him forever. Carmen turned to Ariel. "Does he tell you the truth, little girl? Does he tell you that he still keeps our engagement photo in his safe? That he once said no woman would ever be what I was to him?" Malik's jaw tightened. "That was before I found out who you really were." "And who is that, Malik?" Carmen challenged. "A liar, a user, a woman who sold my secrets to my enemies for a Chanel sponsorship and a beachfront condo." Carmen scoffed. "You think this little charity project will keep you warm at night? You think she loves you?" "I didn't know love could be bought," Ariel said quietly. "But maybe you're the expert." Carmen blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me?" "I don't come from money, but I know real when I see it. You're not here because you love him. You're here because someone else does." The room went still. Carmen's nostrils flared, but she smiled. "How adorable. You think you matter." Malik stepped forward. "That's enough." "She'll break you," Carmen whispered, "and when she does, don't come crawling back." He didn't reply. She walked out without looking back. The door closed. Ariel slowly pulled her wrist from Malik's grip. "I don't need an explanation," she said softly. "I get it." He turned to her. "Get what?" "I'm not her. I'm not a model or a socialite. I don't belong in your world." "No," Malik said, stepping toward her. "You don't belong in her world, but you belong in mine." She looked at him, wounded. "Do I?" "I didn't know she was coming," he said, "and if I'd known, I would have told her to go to hell at the door." Ariel shook her head. "But she walked in, and she knew things I didn't." He paused. "What do you want to know?" "Why her? Why now? Why are you still holding on to pieces of that past if you claim to want something real with me?" Malik sat down on the edge of the couch, hands pressed to his temples. "I was in love with her. Or, I thought I was. She made me feel needed, until I realized she only needed my money." "She hurt you." Ariel didn't have time to prepare before the elevator chimed. She barely registered Malik's clenched jaw or the way his body stiffened. Whatever softness he'd shown her minutes ago vanished, replaced by the icy silence of a man slipping back into armor. The doors opened, and Carmen Holloway walked in like she owned the air they were breathing. She was stunning. Of course she was. Tall, radiant, and perfectly put together in an expensive nude pantsuit and stiletto heels, with hair that looked professionally blown out and a designer bag draped casually on her wrist. She didn't even look at Ariel at first, only Malik. "You're still as handsome as hell," she said, her voice soft and calculated. "But thinner, is she not feeding you?" That's when her eyes flicked toward Ariel. The smile didn't reach her eyes. "Oh," she added lightly, "I didn't realize you'd replaced me with a girl who looks like she just finished babysitting." Ariel didn't flinch. Malik stepped forward. "Say what you came to say." Carmen looked around the penthouse like she was inspecting a stage she once performed on. "I came to apologize, to you, for what happened between us." Ariel tried to step away, to leave the room, but Malik's hand caught her wrist, gently. He didn't look at her, but he didn't let go. "You didn't come to apologize," Malik said flatly. "You came to cause problems." Carmen gave a coy shrug. "Can't I do both?" "Say what you need to say and go." Ariel watched quietly, feeling like a ghost in her own story. She'd walked into this man's life through desperation, and now stood between him and the woman who once promised him forever. Carmen turned to Ariel. "Does he tell you the truth, little girl? Does he tell you that he still keeps our engagement photo in his safe? That he once said no woman would ever be what I was to him?" Malik's jaw tightened. That was before I found out who you really were." "And who is that, Malik?" Carmen challenged. "A liar, a user, a woman who sold my secrets to my enemies for a Chanel sponsorship and a beachfront condo." Carmen scoffed. "You think this little charity project will keep you warm at night? You think she loves you?" "I didn't know love could be bought," Ariel said quietly. "But maybe you're the expert." Carmen blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me?" "I don't come from money, but I know real when I see it. You're not here because you love him. You're here because someone else does." The room went still. Carmen's nostrils flared, but she smiled. "How adorable. You think you matter?" Malik stepped forward. "That's enough." "She'll break you," Carmen whispered, "and when she does, don't come crawling back." He didn't reply. She walked out without looking back. The door closed. Ariel slowly pulled her wrist from Malik's grip. "I don't need an explanation," she said softly. "I get it." He turned to her. "Get what?" "I'm not her. I'm not a model or a socialite. I don't belong in your world." "No," Malik said, stepping toward her. "You don't belong in her world, but you belong in mine." She looked at him, wounded. "Do I?" "I didn't know she was coming," he said, "and if I'd known, I would have told her to go to hell at the door." Ariel shook her head. "But she walked in, and she knew things. Things I didn't." He paused. "What do you want to know?" "Why her? Why now? Why are you still holding on to pieces of that past if you claim to want something real with me?" Malik sat down on the edge of the couch, hands pressed to his temples. "I was in love with her. Or, I thought I was. She made me feel needed, until I realized she only needed my money." "She hurt you." Later that night, as Ariel tucked Zion into his hospital bed and kissed his forehead, she stepped out into the hallway to find a man in a crisp suit waiting for her. He handed her an envelope. "What's this?" she asked. A gift from Mr. Wells inside was a photo of Malik kissing Carmen from last year. Ariel's hands shook, because in the photo, he looked happy, too happy. Ariel stared down at the photo in her hands, her fingers trembling. The glossy image had been printed deliberately, clean, vibrant, unforgiving. Malik, dressed in a navy-tailored suit, his arm loosely around Carmen's waist, his head tilted toward her, lips caught in a soft kiss. The timestamp in the corner read, 12 months ago. But it wasn't the kiss that burned into Ariel's memory. It was the look on his face. He looked happy, relaxed, familiar, as if he belonged in her arms, as if, once upon a time, loving Carmen hadn't been a mistake. The envelope fell from Ariel's hands and landed on the hospital floor. "Miss Carter," the man in the suit said, "Mr. Wells also requested I inform you. There are more where that came from." She raised her eyes slowly. "Tell Dante Wells to go to hell." The man smirked. That's usually my boss's zip code." He walked off, shoes echoing against the sterile tile. Ariel didn't pick up the envelope. She just turned and walked back into Zion's room. Her little brother was fast asleep, his face soft and peaceful beneath his oxygen mask. She sat beside him, watching the quiet rise and fall of his chest, and wondered what kind of world could be cruel enough to make love feel like betrayal. When she finally left the hospital and stepped outside into the cold air, the black SUV was already waiting at the curb. Malik had sent the driver. She almost didn't get in, but she did, because too much had been left unsaid. Back at the penthouse, she stormed through the front door, heels clicking furiously against the marble. Malik was on the phone, standing near the window with his back turned. "I don't care what the investors say," he said. "If they think my relationship is a liability, they can pull their funding and watch the stock soar anyway." He turned just as she reached him. and the expression on her face made him pause mid-sentence. "I'll call you back." He hung up and stepped forward. "What happened?" She held up the photo. Malik froze. "I don't need you to explain," Ariel said quickly, voice shaking. "I just need you to know this. I am not a rebound, and I refuse to be some cover-up for a man who's still trying to wash the scent of his ex out of his memory." Malik's jaw clenched. "Where did you get this?" "Dante Wells sent it, but the source doesn't matter. The look on your face does." "That photo is from a charity gala a year ago. Carmen showed up uninvited. She kissed me. I didn't kiss her back." "It doesn't look that way." "Photos lie," he said firmly. "But I won't." He walked over and took the photo gently from her hands. His eyes scanned it, then he tore it clean in two and dropped the pieces into the fireplace. The flames hissed. "I told you," he said, facing her. "She's gone. She means nothing. You're the one I see now." "But do you feel anything?" she asked quietly. "Or am I just another contract? Another arrangement?" Malik didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped forward, cupped her face, and whispered, "You were supposed to be a business solution. But you ruined that. You made me feel things I never planned for." Her breath caught. He leaned down, but she pulled away. "I can't do this if you keep hiding pieces of yourself," she said. "I don't need your money. I don't need this penthouse, but I do need the truth." Before he could reply, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then stiffened. The nursing school. Her old department chair had left a voicemail, confused, disappointed, asking if it was true that she'd been paid to become Malik Kingston's public girlfriend. Her stomach dropped. Another headline had gone viral. 30 minutes later, Ariel sat on the couch staring at the screen in shock as the national morning show played clips of her and Malik at the charity gala, the hospital, and the restaurant last week. An anonymous source close to Malik Kingston has confirmed that the young woman seen frequently at his side was originally hired through an escorting agency for a one-night VIP experience. Rumors now swirl that their relationship was never real and may have been a publicity strategy. The host smirked. "Can a billionaire really fall for a broke girl from the South Side? Or is this another Cinderella story gone corporate?" Ariel felt sick. Malik paced the room behind her, his phone pressed to his ear as he barked orders to his PR team, legal counsel, and executive assistant. "No more leaks. Lock down the footage. I want cease and desist letters on every blog that ran this story within the hour." But Ariel barely heard him. The humiliation hit harder than any slap. Her professors would see this. Her classmates, the nurses, the donors helping with Zion's care. Everyone would look at her and think, she sold herself for a billionaire's attention. She stood, dazed. "I need to go." Malik turned. "Ariel?" "I need air." She grabbed her coat and rushed for the elevator. He didn't follow. She ended up back in the park, the same bench, the same sketch pad. But this time her hands couldn't move. Her fingers curled tight around the pencil, but never pressed it to paper. She didn't cry, didn't scream. She just sat there, numb, silent, waiting for the panic to pass. But it didn't. When she returned hours later, the penthouse was empty. At least she thought it was. Until the television flickered on, and Malik Kingston appeared, live, at a press conference. "Thank you all for coming," Malik said, standing in front of a wall of cameras and microphones, every major network logo lined up behind him. "I won't take up much of your time, because frankly, I've wasted enough of mine trying to play the media's game." He took a breath. "I met Ariel Carter under unusual circumstances. Circumstances I won't elaborate on, because they don't matter. What matters is that every rumor you've read is false. Every suggestion that she was some hired face, some pretty contract, is a lie." Ariel sat slowly on the edge of the couch, hand over her mouth. Do you know what it's like to be seen only for your bank account? To have people fall for the zeros in your name, and not the flaws in your character? He looked out across the crowd. She didn't ask for my money. She never took advantage of my position. In fact, she refused every luxury I tried to offer her. And if anyone here has any doubts, let me be clear. He stepped forward. I love her. A gasp echoed in the room. Reporters murmured. The camera shook slightly. And if that love costs me a business deal, or a few investors, or a few points off my stock value, good. Because for the first time in my life, I'm investing in something that won't depreciate. Ariel burst into tears. Real, guttural, chest-crushing sobs. Because she knew he meant it. She could see it in his face, through the screen, through the walls they'd built between each other. He wasn't performing. He was telling the world. Minutes later, a knock echoed through the penthouse. She opened the door. Malik stood there, tie undone, eyes exhausted. I said it on camera, he whispered. I know. But I need to say it to you. He stepped forward, took her hand. I love you, Ariel, and I'm done hiding. Ariel didn't say anything right away. She stood in the doorway of the penthouse, tears still drying on her cheeks. Malik standing before her like a man who had just bared his soul to the world and was now offering it to her. I didn't ask for any of this, she whispered. I know, he said gently. I didn't want to fall for you. I didn't want to fall either. She looked up at him, searching for any trace of insincerity, but there was none. His usual arrogance was gone. There was no suit of armor in his stance, no ice in his tone. Just Malik, just the man behind the fortune, standing in front of her like a boy still learning how to love. I don't know what this means, she said. It means we stop pretending, he said. It means we start building something real. A long silence passed between them. Then slowly she nodded. Okay. His hand tightened around hers. I want to take you somewhere tomorrow, he said. Somewhere I've never taken anyone. She raised a brow. Where? My real home. They flew out before sunrise, not on a private jet, not in a stretch limo, but in a regular commercial seat, coach class. Malik wore jeans and a sweatshirt, no bodyguards, no assistants. Just him, a baseball cap pulled low, and a paper coffee cup in hand. Ariel glanced sideways at him several times, still half expecting this to be another test or another layer of the act. But there was no performance in his posture. He was quiet, thoughtful, almost shy. They landed in Savannah, Georgia. The air was thick and humid, the sky a mix of golden sunlight and soft morning haze. Malik rented an ordinary black SUV and drove them himself through back roads and neighborhoods that whispered of simpler lives and harder truths. They arrived at a small, worn-down house with faded shutters and an overgrown garden full of wild roses and weeds. This is it, he said. Ariel stared. This is where you grew up? He nodded, stepping out of the car. It belonged to my grandmother. After my mum died, she raised me here. We didn't have much, but it was the last place I felt safe before the money changed everything. She followed him up the cracked concrete path. The porch creaked under their weight. He pushed open the door with a soft groan of rusted hinges. The inside smelled of dust and memories. Old wood, lemon polish, something that still held the ghost of Sunday morning breakfast and church shoes left by the door. The furniture was covered in sheets. The curtains were yellowed, but the heart of the home still pulsed under it all. Ariel turned in a slow circle. It's beautiful, he chuckled. It's falling apart. It's still beautiful. Malik smiled, eyes distant. She used to sit right there by the fireplace and tell me stories about my mum. said I had her eyes and her stubborn streak. He walked to a faded picture on the mantel. 2 women, one elderly, one young, both smiling at the camera with their arms locked. My mum died in a car accident when I was 10. I didn't cry at the funeral. I just shut down. Ariel came to stand beside him. She placed a hand lightly on his back. She was all I had, he whispered. And then my grandmother got sick. I dropped out of school at 17, took 3 jobs, learned coding at night from an old laptop with a cracked screen. People think I was handed everything. They don't know I built it all with grief in my throat. Ariel swallowed. You've carried so much. He turned to her. So have you. They sat down on the dusty couch, still covered in plastic. He pulled out a tin box from beneath the old coffee table and opened it. Inside were faded drawings, stick figures, sketches of inventions, a childish attempt at designing a robot with tape glued across the page. I used to think I'd invent something to bring her back. Ariel smiled sadly. And now you build companies that change the world. None of it matters if I don't know what to do with my heart. She looked at him. Then let's figure it out, together. They didn't kiss, not yet. They just sat in that forgotten living room, his head leaning gently on hers, the past finally speaking in a language both of them understood. Loss, longing, survival. Later that evening, Malik took her to a quiet restaurant down the street, one of those old southern places with chipped booths, hand-painted menus, and sweet tea poured like holy water. Everyone in the place recognized him, but no one approached, because the Malik Kingston they knew had once lived here. He wasn't a celebrity in this town. He was a memory. Everyone's staring, Ariel whispered. They're wondering why I look human again. She raised a brow. You didn't before? Not until you. They laughed quietly over fried catfish and cornbread, and for the first time since their contract had begun, Ariel let herself relax completely. No cameras, no expectations. Just him, just her, just possibility. After dinner, they drove back to the house. The stars had spilled across the sky, sharp and clear. Malik pulled an old blanket from the back of the car, and they laid it across the hood. They lay there, side by side, staring up at the heavens. My grandmother used to tell me the stars were watching over us, he said, that every person we ever lost turns into light. Then your mom's the brightest one, he smiled faintly. And yours? Ariel hesitated. I like to think my dad watches over Zion. When I couldn't afford rent one time, someone paid our overdue power bill anonymously. Maybe it was just luck, but I told Zion it was Dad. Maybe it was. Ariel turned her head. Do you believe in fate? I used to believe in survival. That was enough. But now... He looked at her. I think I believe in you. She blinked. That's a dangerous thing to say. I know, he said, voice barely above a whisper. But I've been afraid long enough. He leaned in slowly. She didn't stop him. Their lips met softly. No fireworks, no hunger. Just 2 people learning what it meant to be safe in someone else's arms. When they pulled apart, she rested her head on his shoulder. He laced his fingers through hers. And in that still, sacred moment, they weren't billionaire and girl from nowhere. They were just Malik and Ariel, 2 scarred souls trying to build a future that had nothing to do with contracts and everything to do with healing. The next morning, Malik's phone buzzed. He glanced at it as they stood on the porch, ready to leave. Then his face changed. What is it? Ariel asked. He held out the screen. It was a headline. Breaking. Malik Kingston's company under federal review. Allegations of financial misconduct linked to ex-fiancée Carmen Holloway. Ariel looked up at him. His jaw clenched. They're coming for everything I built. The plane ride back to Atlanta was silent. Not tense, not angry, just heavy. Malik sat beside Ariel with his elbows on his knees, phone clutched tightly in both hands. His jaw hadn't unclenched since he read the headline. His assistant had sent him 2 follow-up texts in all caps. The federal audit was real and serious. Ariel sat beside him, quiet but alert, watching him like a storm cloud she couldn't shield him from. She wanted to reach for his hand, but she didn't know if this was a moment for comfort or war. When they touched down, 2 black SUVs were already waiting on the tarmac. The security detail was doubled, and the first call Malik took, he barked into his phone so sharply she flinched. No comment, not until I speak to every department head and find out how the hell my name ended up next to hers again. The second they stepped into the penthouse, Malik tore off his suit jacket and flung it across the back of the couch. The tension in his body looked ready to shatter glass. I shouldn't have ignored the signs, he muttered. I should have buried her the first time she betrayed me. Ariel walked in slowly, setting her purse down. You don't know it's her. She's the common denominator in every scandal tied to my name. Every leak, every whisper of doubt, she's always there. She's also smart, Ariel said gently. Too smart to leave a trail, so we have to be smarter. Malik turned to her, brows raised. We? You think I'm leaving now? She asked, arms folded. I wouldn't blame you. Then you don't know me at all. That stopped him. He exhaled, long and low, like air leaving a punctured tire, then nodded. Okay, he said, then let's work. They sat down side by side in his home office for the next 5 hours. Malik called lawyers, compliance officers, and digital forensic experts. Ariel took notes, tracked timestamps, pulled every photo and email Carmen had sent over the last 6 months. They built a timeline together, day by day, hour by hour, of every point Carmen had access to sensitive information. By midnight, their eyes were red and their backs ached, but they had something, a digital signature. Carmen had used Malik's old password, the one she memorized when they were engaged, to access archived financial files. Files she then leaked anonymously through a foreign IP address, masked by a VPN. But it wasn't masked well enough. Malik leaned back in his chair and rubbed his eyes. We have her. Now what? Ariel asked. Now we go public, with proof, and we destroy her. She looked at him. Are you sure that's the right move? He blinked. You think I should let her get away with it? Number. But I think you should let the truth speak for you, not vengeance. Malik's eyes locked onto hers. She wasn't wrong. He hated that she was right, but he loved that she was still here. The next day, the firestorm hit. Malik's PR team released a carefully written press statement, accompanied by digital evidence of Carmen's unauthorized access to confidential files. The narrative flipped instantly. Malik was now the victim of corporate sabotage. His ex-fiancée was exposed for espionage and breach of NDA. Legal action had already been filed, but not everyone believed it. A popular podcast ran a special episode titled The Rise and Fall of Malik Kingston. Is this his final PR stunt? And just like that, Ariel's name was back in their mouths. They pulled up the original rumors. They dragged her all over again. It's no coincidence, one host said, that every time Malik's public image is at risk, he wheels out this perfect little Cinderella in nurse's scrubs. Yeah, the other snorted. I'm not saying she's an escort, but I'm also not saying it. Ariel closed her laptop, and for the first time since this all began, she cried. Not out of anger, out of sheer exhaustion. She didn't want to be famous. She didn't want to be a symbol. She just wanted to be Ariel and hold on to something real. Malik found her sitting on the balcony that night, legs pulled up to her chest, hoodie zipped to her chin. He didn't speak at first. just sat beside her, close but not touching. She didn't look at him until he finally said, "I didn't mean to pull you into this mess." She sniffed. "I chose to be here." "I never should have let it get this far." She turned to him. "What does that mean?" He didn't answer, which was already an answer. Ariel stood slowly. "You're scared." "I'm trying to protect you." "Number. You're trying to protect yourself by pushing me away before I decide to leave." He looked up at her. "You think I haven't seen this before?" She whispered. "This is what men do when they start to feel real things. They self-destruct before anyone can break their heart." He stood too. "I've spent my whole life building something no one could take from me. And now you have something they can take," she said. "Me." Malik's silence said everything. "I love you," she said quietly. "But I won't beg you to believe it." She turned, walked back inside, packed her things in silence. Malik didn't follow, not right away. By the next morning she was gone. No headlines, no cameras, just an empty room and a note that read, "Tell Zion I'll always be grateful. I'm not walking away from you. I'm walking toward myself. If you ever want to meet me there, you know where to find me." Malik sat on her bed for a long time, holding that note. He hadn't cried in over a decade. Until now. A week passed. The scandal began to die down. Carmen disappeared from the media. The feds closed the preliminary review and cleared Malik's name. But none of it mattered, because Ariel was gone, and silence filled the penthouse like poison. Then, one afternoon, as Malik stood in front of the mirror, adjusting a tie for a televised interview, Zion walked into the penthouse, alone, with tears in his eyes. She collapsed at school," he said. "She's in the hospital. They said it's stress, and she kept whispering your name." Malik didn't grab his phone, or his keys, he just ran. Malik didn't think. He didn't grab his wallet, didn't call security, didn't even stop to shut the penthouse door. He ran, down the private elevator, across the lobby, into the back seat of his town car, his voice shaking as he barked at the driver. "Grady Memorial, now!" Zion sat beside him in stunned silence, his small hands twisted tightly in the hem of his hoodie. His eyes, usually full of fire and mischief, were glassy and red. "She wasn't sleeping," Zion mumbled. "She hasn't been sleeping, or eating. She said she was fine, but she wasn't, and she wouldn't call you." Malik turned to the boy, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. "You did the right thing." Zion nodded, but his bottom lip trembled. "She's all I got." Malik swallowed hard. "She's all I've got too." The emergency room buzzed with soft chaos. Gurneys wheeled past, low voices echoed over the intercom, and the scent of antiseptic clung to every inch of air. But Malik only saw her. Ariel lay curled on the narrow hospital bed, IV in her arm, dark circles bruising the delicate skin under her eyes. Her hair was in disarray, a loose bun falling apart. She was still wearing her nursing school scrubs, wrinkled and damp with sweat. She looked so small, so tired, and so beautiful. The nurse at the door nodded him in without a word. Malik stepped slowly into the room. Ariel's eyes fluttered open at the sound of his shoes. She tried to sit up, but he reached her before she could. "Don't," he whispered, gently easing her back into the pillow. "Just rest." Her voice was faint. "You came. I ran." Her lips curved slightly, too weak to fully smile. "You always run when things matter." He sat beside her, clasping her hand carefully, afraid of hurting her. "I'm sorry, for everything, for letting fear control me, for making you question your place, for not running to you sooner." She blinked slowly. "I couldn't breathe, Malik. The headlines, the lies, the weight of it all. I've carried so much for so long. And for a while, being with you made me forget all that, made me feel like I wasn't alone anymore. You're not, he said. Not anymore. But I was starting to lose me, trying to be enough for a world that never wanted someone like me in it. He leaned closer, eyes never leaving hers. You don't have to be enough for them. You only ever had to be enough for yourself. And you? I don't want a perfect woman, he whispered. I want you. Just you. Messy, tired, brilliant, stubborn, exhausted. You. A tear slid down her cheek. He wiped it away with his thumb, and she leaned into his touch. You don't have to stay, she said. You've already done enough. Malik shook his head. Not enough. Not even close. He stood, pulled something from his coat pocket, and returned to the bedside. Ariel frowned as he held it out. It was a small box, velvet, unassuming. Her breath hitched. I'm not asking you to marry me today, Malik said softly, but I am asking for a promise, a chance, a future. He opened the box. Inside was a simple gold ring, elegant, no diamonds, just a delicate band with a tiny engraving on the inside. She squinted, reading the inscription. Yours, Ariel's voice broke. You had this made? 3 weeks ago, the day you told Carmen you weren't scared of her, the day I realized I was. Of her? Of losing you. He slid the ring onto her finger with reverence, like it was sacred. Ariel looked down at it, heart thundering. You really love me? He leaned in, brushing his lips against her knuckles. With everything I am, I've built empires, destroyed rivals, made headlines, but the only thing I've ever built that matters is us. She touched his face gently. I love you too. He kissed her palm, closed his eyes, and for a while they sat in silence, together, whole. Later that night, Ariel was moved to a private recovery suite. Malik stayed the entire time, barking at nurses who moved too slow, fluffing pillows he didn't know how to fluff, attempting to read medical charts upside down. You're hovering, Ariel said, smiling faintly. I'm investing. In what? In your tomorrow. She shook her head, amused. You're impossible. And yet, he said, tucking the blanket around her shoulders, you still chose me. I didn't choose you because of your money, Malik. I know. I didn't choose you because of your press conferences, or the penthouse, or the expensive suits. I know. I chose you, she said, reaching for his hand, because you're the first person who looked at me and saw more, not less. He held her hand to his chest, and she felt his heartbeat thundering beneath her fingertips. 3 days later, she was released from the hospital. He carried her to the car, ignoring her protests, and insisted she rest her head on his lap the entire drive home. Except, he didn't take her to the penthouse. He took her to a sunlit brownstone on a quiet street in Midtown, with a wraparound porch and a tree in the front yard. Ariel sat up slowly, frowning. Where are we? Our new home, he said. No cameras, no glass walls, no marble, just a place to breathe. She turned to him, stunned. I bought it the night you left, he said, and every night since, I came here and imagined what it would be like to bring you back. You didn't even know if I'd say yes. I didn't need certainty, he said. I needed hope. She stepped out of the car and climbed the porch steps with him. The inside smelled like fresh paint, lavender, and beginnings. He led her to the back patio, where Zion was playing video games on a beanbag chair. The boy looked up and beamed. I told you he'd come back. Malik grinned. Told you she'd say yes. Ariel sat beside Zion and hugged him tightly. Malik knelt in front of them, his hand brushing against the gold band on her finger. Then he kissed her, long, tender, open, a promise. Just before sunset, As they shared dinner on the porch, Malik's phone buzzed again. He frowned. It was a private number. He answered. A distorted voice said, "This isn't over. She's not safe." Malik stood, voice low. "Who is this?" But the call ended. He looked down at Ariel, then at Zion, his heart pounding, and the words echoed again in his head. "She's not safe." Malik didn't sleep that night. Not a minute. He sat in the corner of the new brownstone's living room, dressed in sweats and a t-shirt, one hand clenched around his phone, the other gripping the armrest, as if letting go would invite the danger inside. He played the voice message again. "This isn't over. She's not safe." The voice was masked, scrambled, filtered through software that made it impossible to trace. But the tone beneath the distortion was unmistakable. Anger, jealousy, revenge. He stared out the window, watching the darkness shift as dawn bled slowly into the sky. Ariel was upstairs with Zion, curled in bed, wrapped in warmth and innocence. She hadn't heard the call. He hadn't told her. Not yet. Because for once Malik Kingston didn't know what to do. He'd conquered corporate warfare, destroyed empires, outsmarted CEOs twice his age. But this was different. This was personal. And now he was in love, which meant he was vulnerable, which meant they were. By morning, he had a plan, and by noon, it was already in motion. He called Marcus Langford, his longtime friend, and the one man who had once hacked into a senator's private server to prove Malik's innocence during an acquisition scandal. Marcus now ran a top-tier cybersecurity agency out of New York. "I need a location on the call that came in last night," Malik said. "Scrambled, right?" Marcus asked, yawning through the phone. "Yeah, but not perfect. There was lag, glitches." "I'll need 3 hours." "You've got 2. While Marcus worked, Malik took Ariel out. He told her they needed air, fresh perspective, a little peace. She didn't question it. They ended up at an old jazz cafe tucked behind a bookstore, the kind of place that didn't show up on Yelp, but had regulars who'd been coming since 1984. It was cozy, warm, quiet. Ariel sat across from him in a mustard cardigan, her hair tucked behind her ears, fingers wrapped around a cup of hot cocoa. "You're quiet today," she said. "I've got a lot on my mind." "Want to talk about it?" He met her eyes. "I want to talk about the future." She tilted her head. "That's broad." "I'm thinking of stepping back from Kingston Enterprises." She blinked. "What?" "Just for a while," he added. "Let the board handle day-to-day operations. I'll still own the company, but I don't want to live in crisis mode anymore." Ariel stared at him. "You built that empire." "I did," he said, "but now I want to build something else." "With me?" "With you. With Zion. With a family." Her throat tightened. "That sounds like a dream." "It doesn't have to be." Then, with trembling fingers, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a new velvet box. Ariel stared. "I know I said I wasn't asking yet," Malik said softly, "but after last night's scare, I realized I've waited long enough." He opened the box. A ring sparkled inside, simple, elegant, gold, wrapped around a single sapphire stone. Not loud, not flashy, just hers. "I'm not asking you to marry the billionaire," he said. "I'm asking you to marry the man who finally found peace, because he found you." Ariel's hand flew to her mouth. "And if you say no," he added, "I'll propose again tomorrow, and the next day, and every day until you're too annoyed to resist." She burst into laughter, tearful, shaky, radiant. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Malik. Yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger. And just like that, he wasn't afraid anymore. Later that evening, as the sky dimmed, Marcus called. Malik answered on the first ring. "I got it," Marcus said. "You're not going to like it." Talk. The call came from a secondary burner cell purchased under a fake name, but it was activated using a data connection from one of your private properties. Malik's stomach dropped. Which one? Midtown, the old condo on 5th. His blood ran cold. That unit had been vacant since Carmen moved out, or so he thought. Cameras? He asked. Offline, Marcus said. Disabled manually. Can you trace the user? I'm already working on it. Malik ended the call and turned slowly to Ariel, who was curled up on the couch with Zion, watching a movie. He didn't say anything, not yet, but his fists were clenched. The next morning, Carmen was arrested, not for the threatening call, that couldn't be directly linked to her yet, but for breaching a sealed NDA, falsifying documentation, and misappropriating company data. Malik didn't attend the hearing. He had Ariel's graduation to plan. 2 weeks later, Ariel stood on the stage in her white nursing school gown, her curls brushed out in soft waves, a smile trembling on her lips as her name was called. Ariel Nia Carter Kingston. She blinked, looked out into the crowd. Malik stood in the front row, dressed in a navy three-piece suit, Zion sitting on his shoulders, holding a cardboard sign that read, My sister's a hero. She laughed through her tears. After the ceremony, she raced into Malik's arms and kissed him in front of everyone. No cameras, no contracts, just love. 3 months later, they married in Savannah. Not at a resort, not at a grand cathedral, but in the small backyard of Malik's childhood home. The same roses his grandmother once planted bloomed again. Ariel walked down the aisle, barefoot, hand in hand with Zion, who proudly gave her away. Malik waited at the altar, tears unapologetically shining in his eyes. They exchanged vows under a wooden arch Malik built himself, and when they kissed, the wind stirred gently through the trees, as if blessing what it already knew. This love was real. This love had earned its happy ending. That night, under the stars, Malik danced with his new wife on the porch. They said nothing. They didn't need to. Until finally, Ariel leaned into his chest and whispered, I never imagined a life like this. He kissed her temple. You imagined it for Zion. You deserved it for yourself. And now? Now, he said, pulling her closer. We imagine the rest of it together. The brownstone was louder now. Toys scattered the floor. Zion's voice echoed from the upstairs hallway, and soft baby cries carried from the nursery. Malik walked in from a conference call, suit jacket in one hand, bottle in the other. Ariel stood in the kitchen, barefoot and radiant, holding their newborn daughter. He walked over, kissed both their foreheads, and whispered, She's got your heart. No, Ariel said, smiling. She's got ours. They stood there, mother, father, brother, daughter, whole, home. She had been forced into one night with a millionaire who claimed he'd never love anyone, but in the end, she gave him something he never thought he'd have. Forever. Love. Here comes the end of Season 1. If you're interested in Season 2, comment Mr. Hope Season 2.